Great song featuring Greg Lake on vocals. From the beginning.
Hi, this is Phil Patapa. Welcome to another edition of Notoriety. Each week we bring everything we want to mark in the calendar, what's not to be missed, everything happening in Northwest Indiana, Chicagoland, and beyond. And of course, it's equivalent of all the newspaper columns, feature stories you'll read in the flagship Post Tribune underneath Chicago Tribune media for all those suburban publications. Of course, we couldn't be here without our generous underwriters and supporters these past 9 years for our show. The folks at People's Bank, Indiana Arts Commission, the wonderful arts advocates at our Andy and Sue Arnold Legacy Foundation. They make our broadcast possible. Some of you are tuned into our traditional radio airwaves, 12:30 a.m. as we usually broadcast from our transmitters right out of Hammond. Others have the added advantage. Maybe you found us on social media on your feed, and you can see that we are not in Northwest Indiana. We are definitely in Chicagoland and beyond this week as we come to you from the Willis Tower, right here in the thick of it all in the Chicago Loop. So behind me, you see a cityscape, and we are all about Chicago for this week. So we have brought with us some friends and some guests that you're going to be hearing throughout our broadcast, because Chicago is here as the Broadway musical. We're Broadway in Chicago. It's here for just the time that it's May the 5th, goes until Sunday the 10th. It's at the beautiful auditorium theater, a piece of living history. And so this morning, we've gathered together with our friends from Broadway in Chicago on this 99th floor observation deck of the Willis Tower, along with some wonderful dance students. So there's a lot of talent that is right here assembled. They're going to learn some Fosse dance steps from some of the leads of the cast of this Broadway tour. Again, only here for this 1 week right now. You'll see right across from me, we're joined by one of those students who's going to put his feet to work for this early morning right now, I should say, as we come to you again on this morning of Tuesday, May 5th, 2026. Brandon is with us. Brandon, introduce yourself for your full name.
Yes, my name is Brandon Ishikata, and I'm a professional dancer here at the Chicago dance community.
And we've talked about some of these workshops in the past when they had the Neil Diamond music come through. Wiz, about a year ago, we just talked about Mullen Williams here.
Yeah.
He's been a part of each of these. So when there's an opportunity that Broadway in Chicago provides for the community to come together and learn from the experts, he's been right here front and center. So he is somebody who also is pretty well known when it comes to doing his own Fosse steps, only because of really your own investment in Bob Fosse as somebody as a topic and as a style of dance.
Yeah.
We said that you have got something going on this summer in June, right?
Yeah.
That really cements you as a Fosse person.
Yeah, I'm very blessed. I was actually accepted by the Burton Fosse Legacy. They're having their intensive training program, which they're originally based in New York City, but they're coming to Chicago actually in June for the first time. And so they're bringing the 2-week program here, and I'm very fortunate that actually Nicole Fosse, which is the daughter of Bob Fosse and Gwen Burden, she very graciously awarded me a scholarship to attend. So I'm very, very lucky and very fortunate to learn the authentic style.
Brandon has spent the last decade here in Chicago, originally from the West Coast in California. Yeah. And Fosse has probably been something that has been on your radar, I'm guessing, from even your earlier education years, just because you've known of those dance steps or the hit musical numbers?
Yeah, I think that there's, if you ever heard the Emmy Award-winning Burton Fosse series, the Fosse Burton, excuse me, they do a really good job, I think, doing a biop of what their relationship was. And I think that actually working here downtown at the Art Institute, I actually passed by the honorary Bob Fosse sign every single day. So I am very reminded. I think that there's an element of his work, and also how instrumental Gwen was in his work, and how they were really a powerhouse duo on Broadway.
And you know, and you can hear in the background, students are kind of warming up, they're limbering up, they're getting ready for this. I spotted a few people you're kind of chit-chatting with. So same dance circles kind of overlap, exactly, right? And so when you were getting ready, what are a couple of things that sometimes people make it look so easy, but we know it's not easy. Every single moment, every nuance is choreographed.
Yeah.
What are some of the real challenges that are known because it is a Fosse step, a movement, or how that has to flow?
Yeah, actually, well, Fosse's work actually roots from a lot of different genres. So flamenco, actually classical Indian, and theater games, and ballet and jazz. And I think that one of the things that, like, actually, when I was in my dance education studies, actually did ask about Fosse. And what I like to say is Fosse is like a quiet fire, if the intention of it is really high, but the coolness is very, it looks very cool and select. And I think that's when you see, like, how they use the back, how they use the fingertips. It's like it comes down to the most minute details for Fosse work. And I think that's what, even if you're sitting in the balcony, you can still see all the details while on stage.
Absolutely. And again, seamless. It's just those flows and the movements. What are some of the things that today, when they're going to be doing their steps, that you're kind of hoping that maybe they might do this sequence, or maybe they might hear a little bit of this segment? Anything that you're hopeful that might be on the roster for this morning?
Yeah, well, I would love to know, and ranking choreographed the revival, and she won the Tony for it. And I would love to know if there's the codified language for Fosse, because I feel like we see certain steps that are Pippin, we see certain steps in Chicago, but where can we find the nuances? And if there's a unified language, so if I ask someone who did Pippin, what is this step called? Because I think a lot of times in dance, like ballet, there's a tendu, there's a dégagé, and everyone knows what those are. But in the Fosse world, I would love to know about that codified language.
Absolutely. The musical Chicago here, presented by Broadway Chicago. It's a limited quick run, so you got to make sure you get your tickets. It's this week only. When we say this week, today being Tuesday, May the 5th, 2026, goes until Sunday, which is May the 10th. Auditorium Theater, beautiful space, a lot of seats. Not a bad seat in the house for a show like this that is so opulent. And I love the fact that it is rooted right here in our own Windy City with what it was like at that turn of the century. We're talking jazz, bootleg, we're talking all those high stepping, dance numbers, and also a big part of the media presence. And of course, our dapper lawyer who comes in and is able to razzle dazzle everybody. ask you to pick what as a, I'm gonna say super quick because you are a bossy through and through. Ask you to pick a favorite musical number is kind of tough because it's like ask you to pick a favorite child.
Yes.
I'm gonna ask it anyway. What's a couple that once
Ooh,
you have
yes.
it in your head, then you're embedded with it the rest of the day.
Cell Block Tango, I think
Oh,
is the classic. I think that when Rob Marshall did the movie with Miramax, I think he really did a really good job kind of like doing those little ins and outs, but also I think where it has such dynamics to it. It really showcases the women as a beautiful ensemble, bringing out this dynamic energy. So I think I'm really excited to see that.
Very good. I think everybody is going to start to make their way to the dance area.
So-
We're still going to be watching you on camera and seeing you, Brandon, and we'll see you around the corner soon. All right.
so much.
We'll let you dance on down that way.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll get you in there. We'll have Eloise pop on over here. Eloise Valadez is going to chit chat a little bit
Hopefully that was
soon.
hopefully that was helpful.
Perfect. Eloise, have
Oh,
a seat and we'll get to chit chat a little.
Oh,
Getting ready to get ready for our workshop. Eloise Valadez, longtime columnist colleague for the Times newspaper, Desk Neighbors for many years, and also Daily Southtown for at least a decade before that. Together here we are again. We are on the observation deck of the Sears Tower.
What a view, too.
And anybody to learn some of the dance numbers that we're gonna put our camera on in just a minute here, and then we'll talk to some of the cast members. You've seen Chicago how many times, Eloise?
Oh, at least about 5 times.
I would say at
or
least
more.
When it comes through, it's always such a popular ticket.
It is.
And it's one that, again, we've seen some things that we think, okay, check mark, once is good.
Uh-huh.
This is when we can see it again and again and always
right.
love it, right? Again, it goes until Sunday, May the 10th. I asked Brandon, one of our dance students, just a minute ago, he's about to start the workshop with the rest. A favorite number, I'm gonna ask you that same question. A favorite number that you love from the show. It's hard to pick one, but I know.
It's hard to pick. I love really all the big dance numbers. Yeah, because I think the choreography is spectacular for this show. I think that's more than the story for me. It's the choreography. You know, I just think it's just phenomenal.
Eloise and I both being longtime survivors in newsrooms here, there, and everywhere. I thought maybe you would say your favorite numbers on Still Had It Coming.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens. We all get the book sometime, but we know, or maybe Mama, everybody takes care of Mama. Those were so many great numbers. And I think the movie kind of revitalized it all again, didn't it?
Mhm. Oh, yes.
When that
yes.
movie came through and everybody got on board,
Oh,
wanted to
yes.
see all the opulence of the numbers. Of course, they can do things in the big screen version that can happen. The
Right.
Broadway tours, but still, when you see a Broadway tour, you were really getting to see something that's original every
Yes.
performance. It's never going to be the same
And
performance
it's
every
really
time.
special when you see it in Chicago. The show.
Absolutely.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right here in the roots. And we were talking about the fact that there are so many just historical parts to it. With
Oh,
the way
yes.
the press was at the turn of the century,
Right,
right?
right. That's
Yeah.
fascinating to see.
And I'm gonna make sure as we're chatting here that one of our helpers keep an eye on what's going on down there. They're probably limbering up and getting ready before we have to push
starting
cameras
now.
that way.
Yeah.
But somebody could just be sort of warming up. So we want to send one of you down there to kind of keep an eye and say, yeah, if something real is happening, or if they're still warming up.
They're
Tell
running
me.
around right now.
So why don't you go on down that way and keep an eye for us, and then we're gonna keep chatting here, Eloise. One of our newspaper colleagues, years back, and I'm gonna use names. I'm gonna name names here. Bob Casarda
Oh,
used to like to razz and tease. And our other columnist colleague, Molly Wolfson, Phil, I can't believe he said that about you. That's a terrible dig about the Sob sisters. Remember that was and it was a part of journalists, and Mary Sunshine was one of the reporters that
oh,
Billy Flynn is able to just sort of control, and he controls all the press with his quick antics in the courtroom. But the Sob sisters really was a vestige of journalism at the turn of the century, because first of all, women were not journalists at the turn of the
right,
century.
right. Yeah, they were.
Eloise, not to go back, but even when you were starting, even when I was starting,
Uh-huh.
a lot of women were thought to be more in the features, right?
Right. And what they called it, women's news.
Women's
You know,
news.
that's what they
What
called
would be
it.
some of the topics? If you were on women's news for things like
Fashion shows, fundraisers, cheese.
society, charity,
Yeah,
functions,
charity
right? Of course,
function.
food and recipes we
Yeah,
talked
so
about.
definitely food and recipes.
And again, we're not that old. this is really in the 1980s. It was still kind of thought of that.
Right,
Now,
right.
now, of course, there were women that were in management and maybe were in some of the reporter positions, but I still think it was old school where
Oh, yes.
you went to
yes.
the police department for cop shop and you were, a gal that was starting out as a reporter. They might kind of raise an eyebrow or kind of razz you a little bit. Today, luckily, those barriers are all come down. In the musical Chicago, the character of Mary Sunshine is a composite of the style of journalist that again was called the Sob Sisters, where a lot of these attorneys knew if they could get a reporter byline by one of these lady journalists at the time, they would be able to bend them to probably agree with their side by
To say
taking
what you
on,
wanted. don't you?
a sob story.
Yeah.
My poor client, this happened with,
Oh,
there's the scene in the player, where she says, not to give away things, but of course, if somebody were going to go before the courts and she also was an expectant mother, my readers will never tolerate, like this lady to have a baby in jail, set her free kind of a thing. So when Bob Cassardo was saying, oh, all you feature people, you should be like the character of Mary Sunshine. They must have based it on you. First of all, not the case, not true. But
the featured people work very hard, right?
and there's one secret we're not going to give away. And now, if you've seen the Chicago musical, you might know this part. But you and I are not going to give away the secret of the character of Mary Sunshine in the Broadway tour. In the musical, there's a secret that happens that we're not going to talk about. And there, in the movie, that role was played solo by Christine Baranski.
Oh, that's right. She's so good.
Oh, she was phenomenal. And of course, who was the attorney, the slick attorney in the movie? Richard Gere, remember Richard Gere?
Yes.
And I believe he did a lot of his own singing, which people were very surprised that they didn't know if he could probably carry the tune. Of course, the two leads in there, right?
Mhm.
Catherine Zeta-Jones, Michael
Yes.
Douglas's wife, and then opposite Renee Zellweger, and just an all-star cast of folks. Sometimes I think, don't we all feel like the lead song, I'm Mr. Cellophane?
Oh, yes, yes.
People ignore you, see right through you. That's Amos, the poor lackluster husband of one of the lead characters, right?
So,
Exactly.
that way.
Exactly. How are we doing on our workshop? We think we're still doing a little bit of stretching and moving up here, right? Eloise, a couple of things that would come. This one I know ranks right at your top for best musicals. How about you yourself came from a background in dance?
Yes. yes.
Bossy probably is not an easy formula when it comes for a dancer. Is that
No,
true?
and it's a very stylized, type of movement, and but it's exciting to try to do that. I've done some bossy moves and the jazz hands. That's always
You're the first to mention it.
Jazz hands.
You're the first to mention we were all thinking of you. I'm glad you said it. And really, everybody they move seamlessly, all one movement
Mhm,
in costumes.
mhm.
Sometimes they throw in some huge opulent fans, right? Feather
Yes.
plume fans. So there's a lot of things going on. Our guest right before you, one of the young dancers, and he loves the cell block tango.
Oh,
When all of them
yes.
live in there, right? That's one of them. I think the famous murderess is on the road at Cook County. Of course, if you're there might be generations hearing about the musical and thinking Chicago musical, remind me again, based on the true ripped headlines of the pair of famous murderesses right here, Chicago, Cook County, and the fact that they competed for headlines. Now, the fact that it goes into other things, such as they later have their own successful vaudeville show. That's some, I think, artistic licensing that happens with it. But true, these were these a murder that was a murder of the heart, right?
Right.
It was something that was a murder of passion
Mhm.
that was the trigger that made this happen, during a time again where women had a whole different role, and it certainly wasn't one usually behind a revolver, as happens here. I bet you probably have interviewed someone. Sometimes we get some famous headliners that come through this town. This is a really wonderful, accomplished cast. In our 30 years plus of reporting, I'm thinking of some attorneys. Who was it that was from Seinfeld with the girl here?
Yes,
Hurley, right? John Hurley.
John Hurley, yeah.
He's been a great.
He's been here a number of times.
He's done these rooms.
Yes.
I think originating roles are people like Cheetah Rivera,
Yes,
right?
yes.
One of our
Back in the
original
day,
ones
she did that.
originated.
Yeah,
Our previous interview talked about, and I didn't get to see the streaming series either. The one that was all about Fosse and Gwen Verdon
yes.
and their complicated relationship. Did you see some of it?
I heard,
Yeah.
if you saw the whole thing, it was very
And he said
fascinating.
Michelle Williams he said was just absolutely compelling and
yes.
wonderful.
Mhm.
And a lot of behind the scenes. It's a tough world that is anything to do with live performances. We know
It's
arts.
right.
It's got to be passion. It's got to be part of you.
Right.
And with dancing, you've got to take care of yourself because there's a window there.
Exactly, yeah.
Much like athletics, right?
Uh-huh.
There, after a time, it can be tough on the body.
Right.
Of course, we know one of our underwriter sponsors, Theater at the Center, our home away from home. We spend a lot of time at the Center for Visual and Performing Arts. For example, our stage is one that is not made for dance. So a lot of times people will say, oh, we want to have a dance recital and have a book there.
Mhm.
We can get away with, let's say, doing a run of a course line for 6 weeks or something, but it's not meant for the net cracker where you've got people, because underneath there is just concrete and plywood, basically.
Oh.
A stage that's a dance stage, it has a bit of a give, doesn't it?
Right, right,
know,
right.
And you need that for joints,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Muscles.
Right.
Dancing
right.
on concrete isn't going to do
No,
any
concrete
favors.
is very bad. Story about concrete is I was social dancing one time, pounding on the pavement, and the next day my legs hurt so bad, my shins, my
You could feel it.
knees. Bad. That's
where you're reaching to the astral.
Yeah.
We're ready to slip into the next room because I don't want you to miss anything else.
Okay.
Don't go too far. We'll probably reconvene as a co-host later on.
All right.
We're going to just toggle a little bit with our tables and our cameras and take you into the workshop. You can learn some steps as well.
Thank you.
I'm Jerry Williams. For over 35 years, I protected Lake County as a state trooper and interim police chief of Gary. This is my home, and keeping our communities.
The prog rock group Emerson, Lake and Palmer came out with this great song featuring Greg Lake on vocals. From the
But elbows are pinned into your sides. But we want to relax those wrists. So like little finger, relax those wrists, make sure nothing is tense in there. And as you had some grip water on your shoulder, would it go all the way down or would it be stuck in your elbow? Probably not. Lower those forearms all the way down. Good. Keeping your arms here, but keeping them nice and relaxed, I suppose. We're gonna do some more of those hip isolation that we talked about earlier. But again, okay, we're doing relaxation and we're doing isolation. So, whichever direction you'd like to go, that's you. We're just bringing those hips in a circle. We're gonna add some feet in a second. So let's listen to that. Good. Just hips in a circle. Boom. Then you can add 4 little tiny steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Notice I'm emphasizing the 1. That's what's getting that hip around. switch your directions. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. A lot of times it goes in a circle. So if you like to spin it with me, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 4. Nice. Yes. Keeping those feet nice and small, right next to each other. Gotta shake it out, shake it out. Nice. So we've learned our flossy wall. We've learned the mess around, which it feels accurate for doing. Like, what is going? But it's awesome. Something else you can do with the mess around, you can add that on, you can go somewhere else, you can put it, anyway, in the show I have a jacket, that's what I do here. And I kind of like use it to put a jacket behind me, it's a funnel to show your hip, bossy growth in the burlesque vibe of town. So a lot of his choreo is very not even sultry, but just showing a specific part of your body, and it's very intentional of what you're showing off and what you're not. So that's a big part of any woman life. For a bossy walks to the wrist is a big part of that. For a mess around, it's that thing. Actually,
We don't know how to get for 4 weeks.
there's no bit on it's like choreography, you know, a little school boat type will be going out irritate like little snacks and those things. So this next thing is called a pippin, and that's because it was used in the musical Pippin. What? Does anyone know what a pippin is? Go ahead, show it. Yes! Beautiful! So we're gonna start with our feet. We're just gonna go round up here. There's 2 different things you can do, but your standing foot with your left foot being our right foot, I guess. Those parallel, little bend. The right foot, you can either be up on your toe, or you can be on your heel. There's 2 options. Heel or toe. Choose your poison. Maybe like you feel like you're over your toe. So that's your stance here. Beautiful. Your whole body is going to be tilted over said right foot. But what I mean by a tilt is that the whole thing is going diagonal. We're not just using that isolation from earlier, which I love that we're using the isolation, but not here. And then the arms, it's more of a movement rather than a pose, I suppose. Otherwise, okay. They're bursting up and around, and you're landing in this 90 degree pose here, and our wrists are broken. A lot of things in the box broken or, you know, internally rotated, fun little postures like that. So for a full pivot, parallel leg, toe or heel, diagonal, arms first up and over, and we find that 90 angle of the elbow. Open. Our heads do, whatever we want. I love a little cheeky, like, look at my highlighter on the cheek. We can also look at the audience, let's grip or direct. Love that. Those are good options there. A lot of times the show will do like one side and then the other side, maybe. I know in my experience, the very beginning of the show, I do it to one side, I look at the audience, then I start my bossy walks. I swear. Okay. Good learns the vote. We've learned how it walks. We've learned how people fit in okay, so a big part of the show, not even to read this.
Yes.
Go for it.
Sorry, everybody.
A big part of the show.
We're not shy.
Oh. Stay there, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
A big part of the show, not even particularly for my tribe, but for the ensemble, is improv. I know everyone goes, ah! When I say improv, like same, it's okay. But I think that's what's beautiful about the show is the dancers are able to kind of create their own track, and they have a lot of say in the movement that they do, and I think it's really cool. I swear, if they were here, they'd tell you it's cool too. But of course, it's a little scary initially. That being said, I'm not going to make you like do some crazy improv, so you can like exhale and like really steer improv through your mouth. But I do think that it's a good exercise to think of different silhouettes that could exist in the Fosse verse, the Chicago verse. And so we've gone through 3 things, you know. The elbows maybe touch back, the hip isolation, like some angles and like broken wrists and things like that. So I want everyone to come up with 3 Fosse-esque poses, just with the knowledge that you have and the vibe of Chicago that you may know. And again, your pose could be as simple as literally my first pose in the show. It's just this, a nice little bow. Your pose could be a pippin, but makes you add something to it. It could be a moving pose, but I just want everyone to come up with something themselves because That's a big part of the show. A lot of being a dancer is being told what to do and doing it very well. But I think it's important to have to play a little bit. So I'm gonna look here. We're gonna play some music, literally whatever is out there. Actually, go to the end. I need some energy. I mean, you guys heard that. You don't know. I thought I mean upbeat vibes. And I want us to think about
Thanks for
what you think of.
Let's check the
Babble. Every like that sweet. Yes, yes. If I was better, it's guys, time has arrived. I'm gonna have you play the top of all that jazz. Second song in there. And
Okay, you're back and you got to have a glimpse of. We on here? Well, is it on loop? We all good? All right. Make sure we've got a good signal here. As we get ready to wrap up. You're hearing all those favorite Fosse tunes of Chicago, the musical. Broadway in Chicago brings in this run and presents it for 1 week only. Opening tonight, this is Tuesday, May the 5th, 2026. Goes until just this Sunday, which is May the 10th. What a great opportunity for Mom for Mother's Day. Auditorium theater right in the heart of downtown. Last 7 or 8 minutes here, we give you a glimpse of the workshop that's going on. It was hosted by our own Claire Marshall. She plays Velma Kelly in Chicago Musical. So one of those two lead murders that has all the right steps and the right moves for Fosse. She's been teaching choreography, giving the iconic all that jazz number that show a few new steps, maybe learning a few things along the way. Thank you so much to all of our guests and our folks today, and to you, our listeners, for being a part of our broadcast. Also to producer Adriana Alvarez back at the studio for making everything so smooth. I'm your host, Phil Patempa for OfNotoriety. We'll be back again this week, and we hope you enjoy wherever your path may take you, be it morning, afternoon, or evening, as we sign off.
The singer-songwriter group Seals and Crofts, they had a lot of hits in the 70s, but none like this one called Hummingbird. Their Baha'i religion features a hummingbird as a sacred entity in their religion.